it's the tactics of the transnational criminal syndicates which are utilised in the Pacific as a trafficking thoroughfare, which have changed. Previously, we'd see facilitators, which would be paid normally in drugs, in methamphetamines or cocaine, which they would then sell to a very small number or market which was available to them, made up of expatriates, and commercial elites. While now what we're seeing is the growth of regional indigenous criminal networks, which are feeding a local market and behaving as facilitators and working with transnational criminal syndicates to make it easier to move the drugs through the Pacific, but having a devastating impact on Pacific societies as well.
So give us a sense of what effect it is actually having on society and how that might be breaking down.
Well, the elders lose the influence and the respect that they normally have. An individual who's involved in, for example, drug dealing and has the financial means to, for example, pay for weddings, funerals, to give loans to members of the community, raises his position in the village hierarchy and almost creates a competing power structure, which erodes away the traditional power structures of the elders, of the churches, which normally were able to keep the cohesion of these communities.
What sort of support is there for people who then become addicted to drugs?
That's one of the challenges for the Pacific region at the moment, is that there isn't much in regards to support for example, detox centres and ways to assist people to move away from the cycle of drug addiction and criminality, especially before getting into the cycle of incarceration. I think by looking at the issues in the Pacific, the fallout from the drug trafficking through the region through a law enforcement lens purely is doing the Pacific a disservice. There's not that great engagement with civil society. There is no creation of a safety net to ensure that that users and even people who do not want to continue in this type of lifestyle don't have the support to be able to move away from it safely.
The demand for drugs in both Australia and New Zealand is driving a lot of the trafficking in the Pacific. Are those countries providing any support?
Now, from the growth of these regional criminal syndicates is driven by Australia and New Zealand's drug markets and the appetite for methamphetamine and cocaine. And it's the engagement with criminal actors in Australia, criminal syndicates and outlaw motorcycle gangs and others, and also with transnational criminal syndicates, which is empowering these regional criminal syndicates, and which is making it so difficult to mitigate and to arrest their operations. I think one of the things that Australia and New Zealand are doing right is that Australia and New Zealand as partners have created quite a robust law enforcement security architecture in the region in partnership with Pacific Island countries, law enforcement and governments. But this architecture in itself needs to continuously evolve and needs to be enhanced. The threat that they're facing, these transnational criminal syndicates by nature, evolve at a speed which is greater than law enforcement can generally counter.
And what about providing support for people and rehabilitation services from Australia and New Zealand?
Well, currently we're not seeing much of that. There is a lot of money being that's being used to fund law enforcement initiatives, capacity building training, and in regards to equipment, which has definitely had an impact in regards to drug seizures, larger drug seizures. But more funds need to be aimed towards NGOs or organisations which can assist people who are caught in the cycle of drug addiction. And I think this is a key role that Australian New Zealand NGOs can play by partnering with their counterparts or their partners in the Pacific, and especially by funding them, because currently there is not much in that field in the Pacific region.
Great to talk, Jose. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.